Hey everyone, I'm Zack Arias, and I'm here today with a bit of a critique of a website, but more of a discussion about something in our industry. Last week I put a call out for websites to critique. Many people sent their websites in, and I came across this one gentleman's website and started going through it and started kind of formulating how I would critique his work. And I decided that it was a good representation for a conversation I think we should have. There's a part of me that says this is a conversation we really need to have with ourselves in our industry. There's another part of me that says, consenting adults can do whatever the hell they want, and who am I to say differently? Like, do what you want and call it what you want. If everything's above board and everyone's being professional, then who cares? Now, for this critique video, I'm not going to be naming the photographer, because in this day and age with social media and all of that, if people get really passionate about what they think about it, they're going to go look this photographer up and hit them on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of the places, when simply this gentleman was just looking for feedback on his work. So I head over to his website and I start clicking through the galleries. There's portraits, fashion, dance, headshots, da-da-da-da-da. And my first reaction is, wow, there's a lot going on here. As a portrait photographer, typically I'm going to start with the portrait section. So I'm scrolling through the portrait section, and it's a lot of young females, and then there's a dude, and then here comes a guy, holding a guitar. I'm like, okay. Like, these portraits are going all over the place. There's some headshots in here, but I know that he already has a headshot gallery. And then, I always think about the context of who I'm trying to show my photographs to and what would they think. What is a client going to think, or a subject that might want to work with me going to think when they come to my website? And so when I'm here and I see like a series of family portraits, all right? So we got some family portraits going on in the portrait gallery. But butted right up next to that is this image. I'm not putting together nice family portrait with whatever kind of situations happening in there. So first off, this gallery is just all over the place. But predominantly, it's all young females. If I'm ever going to call something out, I'm usually going to try to tie it to something where it's been called out in me before. Let me take you back some years, and I went to a portfolio review in New York City. And you would sit down and you would show your work, and you'd have maybe 10 minutes or so with this photo editor or this art director. If you can ever go to some of these really well-organized portfolio critiques, I highly suggest it. I was sitting with a photo editor, and she asked me about my personal work. At that time, my print portfolio was pretty much 99% client work. These are pictures that I have done on jobs. On my iPad, I had some more personal work. So this photo editor makes it through my, regular print portfolio and says, okay, well, this is all decent, good editorial, commercial stuff. What kind of personal work do you shoot, Zach? Now, at that point in my life, if I had time to do any personal work, it usually went on some sort of fashion-y bent. Like, we would call a local agency, they would send over some new models, I would get a hair and makeup artist, I'd get a stylist, we'd, collaborate on a day or two of shooting. We would put pretty people in front of pretty light, and we'd make pretty pictures. It's the easiest formula known to man. Pretty people, pretty light, pretty pictures. Boom, done. They were always fun, always enjoyed the process. Well, it was something different to do than the, normal stuff I shoot day to day. So I'm showing this personal work to this photo editor, and she's looking at it, and she's like, Zach, are you trying to break into the fashion industry? And I was like, no, look at me. Like, no, I'm not trying to break into the fashion industry. She's like, do you consider this fashion photography? And I would look at it and I'd say, I wouldn't call it really fashion photography. Probably not. But it's kind of. I'm not sure. It's just, a time to shoot something different that I'm not used to shooting. And she said, well, Zach, this work looks like you're trying to be a fashion photographer. You know, you're trying to make something that looks, you know, fashion-y, but it's not fashion. So Zach, you're spending your time making personal work that looks like it's trying to be something that you're not even trying to be. You're not trying to get into fashion work, but you're making these pictures that look as though you are. And to be honest with you, Zach, you're failing, because these would not get you in the door at any respectable fashion magazine. And I was like, I'm just trying to use my spare time and make some cool looking pictures. And okay. I walked away from that critique feeling so deflated. Like, what in the hell am I doing up here? What am I doing? And then it made me feel like all the rest of my work was garbage too. And that was not the point of the photo editor. And I know that was not her point. I know she was not trying to put me down. I know that she was not trying to make me feel a negative way. What she was doing was being very honest and very blunt and calling something out in me that I'm quite thankful that she did. Because any time after that point that I then had time to work on something personal or try something different, I put it through the lens of her critique. Am I just trying to make pretty pictures of pretty people? Is this just some fashion-y thing because it's kind of fun to do? Or am I trying to make some sort of personal project out of this? And so, Sarah, that brings me back to your gallery here of fashion. All right. Your gallery is filled with too many pictures. I'm going to say that. If you've watched my critiques before, you'll know that I'm going to say it's too many pictures. And it's predominantly all young women, scantily clad in underwear and bikinis and revealing this or that. And this is where this conversation can go pear-shaped, can go one direction or another, or just blow up in all of our faces in the middle. There's a stereotype in our photo industry of the GWC, the guy with camera, right? And it's usually a middle-aged male guy with a bunch of camera equipment who really likes to photograph scantily clad young women. GWCs are usually cast in a negative light on our industry. On this side of the spectrum, it looks like exploitation. And on the other side of the spectrum, it looks like cosplay. By cosplay, I mean someone wants to fancy themselves a fashion photographer, and a person wants to fancy themselves a model, and they're playing the part of the model, and the other's playing the part of the fashion photographer, and they're making Olin Mills pictures of young women in their underwear. Now, imagine I tell you, hey, I'm Zack, I'm a street photographer, and I show you this portfolio of my street photography, and it's a portfolio of girls in bikinis at the beach. And I just go to beaches, and I walk around with a 200 millimeter lens, and I take pictures of girls on the beach. And that's like pretty much my whole portfolio. I think you would look at me and you'd be like, yeah, Zack, about this isn't street photography. I could be like, well, I'm capturing candid moments of day-to-day life of people out in public. Isn't that what street photography does? Isn't that, what these people do when they're shooting street? I'm just taking street photography to the beach. When your whole portfolio is 200 millimeter pictures of girls in bathing suits, I'm going to start to question your motives a bit. And that is where we are in our industry, is questioning the motives of the photographer. We have middle-aged man taking pictures of young women in various states of undress. It's being labeled as fashion, but this isn't fashion. This is not fashion photography. And I'm going to go a little bit further, and I may be called out on this, but many people in this gallery are not models. They're not models, and this isn't fashion photography. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. A pretty person does not a model make. And pictures of pretty people in pretty light is not fashion photography. And it really shouldn't be labeled as such. And this is one of those parts of like, well, who cares what you label it, Zach? I mean, you know, the photographer wants to label it fashion, and the subjects think they're models. And so why not call it fashion photography? Because it's not. It's not fashion photography. Where the creep factor really kind of sometimes jumps in on these pictures is when there are photos that are very clearly shot at a mid-level hotel, like a Holiday Inn Express. You got a hotel room, you know, got a young, pretty woman to come to the hotel room, and you did pictures. It's not telling me a story other than someone who's not a model and someone who's not a fashion photographer got a hotel room and took pictures. Clearly a hotel room. If you zoom in down there, you can see the little plastic covered cups that come in the hotel room. That's hotel art. That's a hotel headboard. That is most definitely hotel carpet. And that's where people who talk about, you know, this is exploiting people. You're convincing people to come to your hotel and start taking off clothes for pictures and then calling it fashion. And I think that's really where the rub is for me, is when we're calling this kind of work fashion when it really isn't. But I don't know quite what to call it. You could start to go towards boudoir, right? Boudoir photography. It's everything you need for your bed and boudoir. Come on down here to Unpainted, Arizona.
Yeah. Would you buy furniture at a store called Unpainted Huffine?
Is it glamour? Is it boudoir? Is it pinup? Is it just portraiture? It's just a style of portraiture. And if you look at your portrait gallery and you look at your fashion gallery, you could pretty much mix them and you wouldn't know, except for like the family photos and the dude with the guitar. Otherwise, it's young women, you know, in lighting. So, sir, what I want to say to you, and I'm not going to call you out on either side of this spectrum because I personally don't know you. I don't know what your motives are. I can read through my tea leaves here on your website, but I could totally make assumptions that are completely wrong. And that's the kind of conversation I'd like to have in the comment section below. Whatever consenting adults want to do with their time, I'm not going to tell them they shouldn't do that, as long as it's within legal boundaries of whatever jurisdiction you live in, right? Here's the hard thing I'm going to say to you, sir, is these photos are a dime a dozen. You get on like One Model Place or Model Mayhem, and you're going to find a million of these exact photos of fairly attractive people in, you know, pretty nice light in various states of dress or undress, trying their damnedest to be a model or a fashion photographer. And they are a dime a dozen. Dime a dozen. But here's the good thing. I want to leave you on a good note. You're a good photographer. You are a solid photographer. I think all of these pictures that you have been taking up until this point have been your wax on, wax off, paint up, paint down, Karate Kid learning pictures. This is a gallery of you learning how to light, learning how to use your gear. I think you're probably a pretty good director. There are exceptions in this gallery, but most people seem pretty comfortable in front of your camera. You know, they aren't all just deer in headlights. With that being said, that you're a good photographer, you know how to light, you know how to use your gear, and I think you're a pretty good director. What I'd like to see you do is stop making the dime a dozen One Model Place photos and take that time and take that energy and take the resources that you're putting into this and find some way to make it more personal to you. You get away from the cliche, right? You get away from going out into the, local municipal park and taking that kind of picture. You don't need anyone to ever straddle a railroad track ever again. Ever. Ever, ever. Railroad tracks, not even once. You've shot these pictures. You've done them all. We've all shot them. I'd be lying if I said I'd never shot these. I've never shot these kind of pictures in my life. Total lie. Totally have. Not my focus any longer. You have the gear. You have all the equipment. You have the know-how. You have the skill set. I think you must be a pretty decent person, because if you weren't, I think I would see it in this number of pictures that you're showing me. I think people trust you and trust to be in front of your camera. So what I want to do is see if you can push yourself in a different direction, that you start creating work that isn't fashion, or glamour, but is truly personal portraiture, right? It's clear that you like to work with people. I see that. Work with people, but do something that it rises above this level of amateur fashion, wrongly categorized genre, I think is what I'm trying to say. All right, so that's it. Please hit me up in the comments below. I read everyone's comments. I want to hear what you think about this. I know my stats. My audience is heavily in the male-dominated realm, but I know that you're out there, and I would like to hear the female perspective of this kind of work. I don't want to just sit here and judge, but I would like a conversation about it. And I think that maybe that conversation could evolve into other things. So please, if you have an opinion on this, and I know that you do, hit me up in the comments below. And as always, always subscribe, and just let me know if there's anything I can be doing better and serving you more on my channel. And lastly, news item, I've got some good news for this channel. We're about to get some fresh, young blood, because Caleb is home, and he's going to be joining me on this channel very soon. So yes, Caleb is home as soon as he's done with quarantine. He's back from Dubai. He is back. He is here. I'm excited, and Caleb is going to be showing up on this channel very soon. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sending in your work. If you want to be critiqued, drop a link below. And we're done. Holiday Inn. Stop.